Well, if I could say this, there were, I didn't see any real clear winners. First of all, I know there was a lot of people watching, but you've got to realize it was probably 20% of the electorate, and most people are not getting their name from sitting down for 3 hours on CNN. It had a huge audience, no doubt about that. Those who are more interested in the whole debate. Donald Trump has been the flavor of the last several months, and the problem is, how long can you talk about Trump? Our concentration spans and our fascination spans last so long with movie stars, with sports stars. I don't care what you do. And so how have you performed today? We don't care about yesterday. And Trump, with everyone coming after him, did some parrying to some degree. But, the guy does shoot from the hip. If he could keep about 20% of what he says and not say it and keep the other 80%, he'd have a lot more traction, in my opinion. So he kind of held his own. I'll be anxious to see what the polls say. I've not seen any polls since the debate last night. Didn't really get that many zingers. I think people that like Donald Trump are going to continue to do so. What happened was that I thought there were 4 or 5 of the other candidates that made some significant ground. Had enough time and 3 hours is way too long for us viewers. But for the candidates, it gave Carly Fiorina some traction. It gave several of the other candidates, I think, some good traction. Marco Rubio got some traction, had a good night. Chris Christie, that people have basically written off, came on pretty strongly, I thought. And so it gave probably 4 or 5 other candidates that were almost out of the picture because of the dominance of Trump to actually get some movement going on and make these debates much more competitive. I'm not sure they'll be that much more interesting, but I think the numbers are going to start growing in some areas and dropping in the other, and Trump is going to be lucky to hold his own. He's showing, when you see Carly up there giving some very specific numbers on national defense, and when you see Christie talking about his background as a prosecutor, some people say, listen, I love Donald Trump. I love what he says. He's so entertaining. But will that wear well? And I think the debate showed maybe a beginning of the downslope of how well Donald Trump will wear. The thing that would concern me, that over my years in being in public life and having run myself on a number of occasions, sometime you can get people excited by flamboyancy and by outrageous statements, throw the bums out. But over a period of time, little nicks in your armor can let you slowly bleed. And for example, last night in the whole autism debate about shots he got into in terms of autistic kids, and maybe it was the shots. Well, the science is on the other direction by and large. And so a certain number of people say, well, yeah, I liked how he's going after those guys. But, I got my kids involved. I just don't believe that. I think he just hasn't studied it that much. Stem cells, all these issues that you've got to get specific on may not have a big effect on today's polls, but week after week and month after month, I just wonder if he's going to be held up to the test. Will little by little there be digs in his armor that'll let him bleed, and then all of a sudden you get some stability of, say, Carly, who's very specific on a number of issues, and the predictability of a Jeb Bush, and will they be able to gain a little momentum and make this thing a real
Sure. Well, at least in the beginning, I disagree about Bobby Jindal. I think his performance was good, but some of the things he said, I got to tell you, I mean, George Wallace would look like a liberal compared to our governor. I just think the man is, he is just absolutely insane with some of his comments.
Hey, don't hold back. Now, kind of tell us exactly what you mean about our incumbent governor.
Pathetic. How about that one? I'm sure you probably feel the same way. I mean, some of the statements that he made, like the one statement that really got me was when he said, the liberals need to tell Christians what jobs they'll able to take. I mean, come on, give me a break. To you, what is the most important issue? I mean, if you had a chance to ask a question, say, last night, what would that question have been?
Well, to me, I think what's most important actually would be social issues. I think it's important that everyone is treated to the best ability. That most people have equal rights, because that's what we're gonna use on a daily basis. So if I want to go to Planned Parenthood, then I should have the ability to do so, because that affects me more so than the fact, like issues with Syria and whatnot. So to me, like social justices or issues are more important to me in particular. So I'd rather that everyone be treated. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Let me follow up with that and just say, look, some of these guys and gal are talking about sending your brother and sister, Jim, your sons, my son, to war. Okay, again, in Iraq, Syria. Trump wants to bomb Iraq, as I recall, and then take the oil. Those may be very abstract, but they're very real. I mean, especially a person like your age. Your friends, your peers are the ones who are going to be fighting. Not mine.
For sure. No, for sure. My boyfriend, my sister, my brother, all military. Like, I'm in a military household right now. So national security and foreign policy is really important to me. But I think I want to say that there's less, it doesn't like always directly affect us maybe all the time. Sure. But I think I watched the part where Carly Fiorina, I said, I would just ignore Vladimir Putin. I couldn't even, that didn't make any sense to me. It's like, he's not an ex-boyfriend of yours that you can just ignore. This is Russia. This is China that we're talking about. These are foreign dignity people that we really need to respect and we need to have conversation with. And it's a very delicate situation. So it's not just people that we can ignore.
But I don't know what you all thought of Carson. Interesting guy, very respected physician. But I felt like, he doesn't pick up on foreign policy, and he was.
I had a feeling that,
and I thought he had a real weak night last night, quite frankly.
I didn't finish watching. I watched about half of it, but I had a feeling that, he did so great in the first debate. Obviously, that's where he picked up all his polling numbers. He picked up all this support. And I had a feeling that last night was going to make or break him. If he had a great last night, he was going to keep that support. If he didn't stand out last night, like, bye-bye Ben Carson. Because he honestly, he doesn't have, his policies aren't in order. He in all reality, doesn't have the background as most of the candidates do. But I had a feeling that was going to happen to him. Like, if he wasn't on top of his stuff, he's not going to last very long.
What do you think, Derek? What was your response? What do you think, Carson?
So I think Carson in a different election would be a stronger candidate. I think when you look at the field, there's a lot of them. And, Trump is an interesting character, but I think he hit it on the head when he was kind of mocking Jeb Bush. It's about energy. And when you have 10 people to choose from, you have to have a very strong, energetic personality. And Ben Carson, I would say Kasich, probably even Rand Paul, like, these guys are a little mellower and a little more soft-spoken in the way that they come up with their arguments and talk to each other, which I think is wonderful. You want to have respectable candidates, but when you're up against really, like, guys who light up a room,
like Chris Christie and
Chris Christie, I would say Rubio, Trump, Bush, like, they all have big personalities. They all look like and sound like leaders when they're up there, and they're really just pushing out the quieter, more respectable candidates. And that's how I felt. And I feel like Carson's just going to kind of fade out because he doesn't have that energy.
I had were really cool, actually, and we stayed really, really on point. I did do the Tell a Little Bird to, I think his account is the real Donald Trump, but we got to get someone on here. I mean, what if a candidate came on, they do all this town hall stuff, right? But everybody knows that's just staged. you know, that they put the little person, the shill person, the mom in the audience to ask the question, you know, or whatever. So, but if that's the reason that we're here on these kind of platforms is because it's really authentic and it's live and you can't fake people out as much.
Michael, Darius, and everybody else, what candidate do you think would be able to capture this authenticity that you're referring to, that, you know, in terms of the social media authenticity?
I'll go first. I think Bernie Sanders is going to be the most successful at doing this in this campaign. I don't necessarily think he's going to win because I don't think millennial voters are going to be as impactful because we're still kind of young, still kind of apathetic, not really that engaged with politics as a whole. And obviously there's a lot of baby boomer and older generations, right, who are still going to be kind of the primary voter in the U.S. So I think like Bernie Sanders will have a strong impact in the way politics are done in the future of political campaigns for millennials. But I don't know if that's enough for him to really win the primary this time.
Michael, you have a thought about it?
You mind if I ask? I'm just kind of curious to know, like on the fiscal / social issues. Can each of you tell me just the kind of out on the table, like where do you fall in terms of social issues / fiscal issues? I'll start with myself.